quota sample takes a different approach at sampling. We set so-called quotas, how the final composition of the sample should look like regarding certain variables for which we set the quotas. Rather than prescribing how the units should be accessed or sampled, like just pick students from NTNU or only pick students from Nord University, we don't make prescriptions on whom to sample or how we should approach people or which people to approach. We just prescribe how the final composition of the sample should look like. And this means that you are forced to match the quotas and probably along the way dismiss units if the set quotas would not be met. An example: you want to know how open-minded towards nuclear power in Norway students in Norway are. Same question as before, or problem as before. You know the approximate composition of the student body in terms of age, sex, and political left-right orientation. Therefore, you set quotas that the final sample should match. For instance, 57% female and 43% male, 40% over 25 years old and 60% under 25 years old, not over. 40% left-leaning, 40% centrist, 20% right-leaning. So this is what you think you know about the population. And if your allotment for males over 25 years who are centrist is already full, you can't accept any additional participants with these characteristics. Quotas may even push interviewers to search for participants outside their immediate social circles and outside their comfort zone, which would be good. Like that would reduce this potential for bias based on the convenience of accessibility. Here we have a special case, the so-called online access panels that you can view as quota samples. A lot of online surveys, also the scientifically relevant ones, is not based on a so-called probability sample, which would be a random sample, for example, but on a specific kind of non-probability sample that takes a form similar to the quota sample. Survey sample providers will usually start by recruiting a very large pool of persons that opt in to participate in surveys regularly. This is the online access panel. In exchange for participating every now and then, they get some benefits like prizes or participate in games of fortune, and background variables like age, sex, gender, education, and income are collected for the entire panel, so they know the composition of the panel along these variables. Now, when a study should be conducted, the client defines how the size and structure of the sample should look. That is which quotas are supposed to be reached. For example, you define you want 50% female, 50% male, 50% high income, 50% low income. Then the panel provider invites the panel members to participate and starts rejecting participants as soon as the quotas are full. For instance, if I already have enough females under 25 years in my panel, no more females under 25 years of age will be accepted. The dangers here are quite the reverse of the dangers of the cluster sample. The initial access to the sample is still unregulated in this case, very much like in a convenience sample. So quota sampling will only remove bias in the variables for which quotas are explicitly set, and not necessarily or not automatically remove bias in other unobserved variables. One can hope that the enforcement of quotas will also produce a more balanced distribution for other core variables, but this is far from guaranteed. And another danger of optimizing the marginal distribution, the way a quota sample does, is that we align the sample and the population in key demographics, but that may make the sample appear more representative than it actually is, and deviations between target and observed distributions can't be used anymore to diagnose sampling deficiencies. So we don't see the errors we are making as plainly as with other methods. So quota samples would give quite a good impression of the underlying real distribution if the unobserved or non-quota variables are unbiased. So the variables we are interested in, but they are not part of the quotas, if they are not associated anymore with the selection procedure. However, if not all biases are removed by setting the quotas, and and there are biases that remain, and that's hard to know, then we get systematic deviations from the underlying population that we don't want, and that causes wrong conclusions about the distribution.